Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast, brought to you by Nickel Investigations, the podcast that delves deep into the unsolved mysteries that haunt our province. I'm Jay Nickel, a private investigator with Nickel Investigations, and your host and guide in this journey through the chilling tales that left investigators baffled and communities in search of answers. In each episode, we'll unearth the forgotten stories of Ontario's cold cases, exploring the details, the evidence, and the individuals involved with the eye of a private investigator who specializes in cold case investigations. From the mysterious disappearances to the perplexing murders, our mission is to shine a light in these cases and hopefully bring justice to those who have long awaited closure. But we can't do it alone. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of these enigmatic cases. We'll speak with experts, law enforcement officials, and sometimes even the families of the victims, all in the pursuit of truth. So buckle up and prepare to dive headfirst into the world of unresolved mysteries. Together we'll keep the flame of hope burning for justice, one episode at a time. Thank you for tuning in to the Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. Let's begin our quest for answers. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 10. This is about Tracy Kundinger. It was on August 20th, 1975, at around 11 p.m., 18-year-old Tracy Kundinger was walking to her family home on Monsanto Court in Thornhill, just north of Toronto, near John and Leslie Streets when her killer approached. Tracy had worked until 10 p.m. as a lifeguard at the Ottawa Indoor Pool located at 650 Parliament Street, Toronto. She decided to take a route that she didn't usually take, cutting through an open space between the area's new developments and the area of German Mills Public School at 61 Swanston Boulevard in Thornhill, near Don Mills Road just north of Steeles Avenue. Tracy would end up being found murdered by strangulation with a piece of twine, possibly picked up from the immediate area due to the many tree plantings that were going on at the development site. It occurred a mere 500 meters from her front door before her lifeless body was left for two neighborhood boys, Steve Smith, 9, and Trevor Block, 7, to discover. Her sister Shannon maintained she would have never taken that route unless she was chased or dragged, as her parents had always strictly forbidden it. Tracy's life. The four Kundinger sisters, along with their mother and father, Mary and Ray, spent their winter weekends and summer breaks up at their Mansfield, Ontario chalet. Tracy and the family would ski all winter and enjoy leisure time in the summers, under the watchful eye of the 50-odd generational chalet owners who surrounded them. It was a blessed type of childhood, and it kept us out of trouble, so one of Tracy's sisters, Janine, it was a safe environment and we knew and trusted everyone. Tracy is remembered by her sisters as being artistic, kind, smiley, and caught up with a hippie 1970s. She was very pretty, long straight hair and brown eyes and a trademark smile, said Tracy's younger sister, Sharon. She was crazy about art, drawing, and painting. I remember her doing sequins all over her bell-bottom jeans. The third sister, Leanne, said she and Tracy would fantasize about their futures. Tracy's involved becoming an art teacher and living on a farm with her future husband. Sharon said she remembers looking up to Tracy, who was 4 years older, making her eligible to wear makeup and date boys. She was all the things you want to be when you're a preteen girl, she said. I would sit in her room and talk to her about her boyfriend and her job lifeguarding. But not all of Tracy's stories were about her crushes, flower power, and platform shoes. Tracy would also discuss the uglier side of her relationship with her then-boyfriend, Jamie Frenwick. Up next, the investigation. This episode is brought to you by Nickel Investigations. The investigation. Tracy was reported to have been wearing a blue jean jacket over a white t-shirt, blue jeans, and a pair of white shoes when she left the Ottawa Indoor Pool shortly after 10 p.m. on August 20th, 1975. Tracy was observed walking with friends to the Castle Frank subway station and ultimately took a Don Mills North bus to Steeles Avenue, leaving the bus at 10:50 p.m. A man who being the only other passenger in the bus, described as 22 to 24 years of age, 175 to 180 pounds, with sandy, collar-length, wavy hair, and wearing a white denim jacket and jeans, got off the bus at the same time and was seen to be walking in the same general direction as Tracy. It is believed that Tracy walked northwest from the intersection of Don Mills Road and Steeles Avenue toward her residence, and across the park area that surrounded German Mills Public School and St. Michael's Catholic Elementary School. At 5:30 on the afternoon of Thursday, August 21st, 1975, two young boys riding their bikes on mounds of topsoil on the grounds of German Mills Public School at 61 Swanston Boulevard in Thornhill, just north of Toronto, stumbled upon the dead body of a young woman. She was 18-year-old Tracy Kundinger, who lived with her parents on nearby Monsanto Court. She had been strangled with a piece of twine. There was no sexual assault. She had not been reported missing because her parents were away on holiday and she was home alone. Police believe Tracy, returning from her summer job as a lifeguard at a pool in downtown Toronto, took a shortcut northbound through a park after getting off the Toronto Transit bus at Leslie and Steeles, and that her killer followed her as she made her way through the woods. A few days later, police issued an appeal seeking a suspect, described as a white male in his early to mid-20s, about 5'8 to 5'11, with fair complexion and well-groomed light brown hair combed over his forehead. He was the only other passenger with Tracy on the bus, and they got off the same stop at about 10:50 p.m. Toronto Sun article at the time, quoting a York police officer, states that it appeared Kundinger had been struck across the face with a heavy instrument. York Regional Police's cold case unit has confirmed there were indeed signs of trauma. Days later, a Toronto Star article quoted forensic pathologist Dr. Gerald Ferris, who said Tracy died of asphyxiation. He explained that her body was hidden from passerby behind mounds of topsoil, knowing the twine with which she'd been strangled remained around her neck. The St. Jamestown facility, then named the Ottawa Pool, where Tracy worked as a lifeguard, wasn't the safest place for a team in the best of times. The pool was surrounded by buildings, Tracy's sister Sharon said. One guy tried to manhandle her into a bathroom cubicle. Luckily, another male saw and helped her. Tracy didn't want my mom to worry, so she told me all these stories when I sat in her room. Sharon said there was also a couple of instances of men paying her unwanted attention and coming on to her around the pool, where she'd been sitting tanned and clad in a bathing suit. Then there was the mysterious disappearance of Tracy's moped, the vehicle she used to drive from the bus stop to her home so that her parents wouldn't worry. It was stolen from the Don Mills Road's Cliffwood Plaza only 4 days before she was murdered, meaning Tracy would not have to walk home after getting off the 25 North Don Mills bus at Steeles. Up next, the suspects. The first suspect is John Ferguson. 34-year-old Toronto man John Ferguson of Gerrard Street East was charged with non-capital murder after almost 14 months of investigation by York Regional Police detectives. 34-year-old unemployed bachelor was on welfare at the time, suffered from severe mental health issues. Ferguson was nabbed after crank-calling a woman, divulging information the police had specifically withheld from the media regarding the Tracy Kundinger murder. Crown Attorney Ian Cunningham said he recommended the accused be sent to Penetanguishene Mental Hospital after he refused to cooperate with police. He said Ferguson had been examined by Dr. Gerald Cooper, a psychiatrist at York Finch Hospital, who described his behavior as very bizarre. Dr. Cooper said he felt Ferguson was unfit to stand trial. The case against Ferguson revolved around his knowledge of two details of the case, supposedly known only to the police. This, coupled with Ferguson's admitted interest in the slaying and his later visits to the murder scene, persuaded police that he was their man. But Ferguson insisted he was innocent, and attorney Marlis Edward, working on her first murder case, believed him. My client claimed he was told about these secret facts by a Markham fireman who used to be a policeman, Edward said. My only hope was to find the fireman. Eventually, with the help of a private investigator, Edward found the fireman. The fireman had been a York Regional policeman for 12 years, and he even remembered the phone call from my client, she said. The fireman was only too willing to testify for Ferguson at the preliminary hearing. He had heard the secret details from some of his old police pals. The case against Ferguson folded, and he walked out of the courtroom a free man. But in Edward's advice, he admitted himself to Queen Street Mental Health Center. This was the only arrest police ever made in the case. To this day, many people believe, with knowledge of the case, mistakenly believe the case was solved as a result of the media attention surrounding Ferguson's arrest. Ferguson later died by suicide by jumping from the Prince Edward Viaduct on March 10, 1989, according to the Toronto Police report. There were no other arrests made, though further rapes occurred in the area over the next few years. A hitchhiking victim. On August 12, 1977, about 3 a.m., an 18-year-old girl was hitchhiking in Steeles Avenue, just east of Yonge Street. She was picked up and the driver took her to Leslie Street, north of Markham. She jumped out of the vehicle and tried to run away, but was caught by her attacker. He then forced her to the ground and raped her. The suspect was described as male, white, 25 years old, 5'10" to 6 feet tall, 150 to 160 pounds, having dark hair and a trimmed mustache, smoking players filtered cigarettes. Next suspect is Raymond Wallace. A woman was accosted at knife point on January 12, 1978, in an area that had been seen one unsolved murder and numerous rapes and indecent assaults. It was the second such incident in a week. York Regional Police said a 20-year-old woman was waiting for a bus on Don Mills Road just north of Steeles Avenue when she was approached by a man with a knife who told her to accompany him. Police said the armed man led the woman to a townhouse construction site, and as they were about to enter, the woman began to struggle, and she escaped. About a week later, a 19-year-old woman was grabbed by a man who produced a knife. The assault occurred in almost exactly the same spot. This was the exact same area as Tracy Kundinger's murder. Police said there had been a number of other rapes and attacks on women in the same area of Thornhill in Metro Toronto, just south of Steeles Avenue, over the previous 18 months, but there were no arrests. On March 28, 1978, Metro Toronto Police arrested and charged a man with rape and attempted rape, and York Regional Police had reason to believe he was the same man wanted in connection with similar crimes in the Don Mills Steeles Avenue East area. Detective Sergeant Robert Wilson, in charge of the York Region investigation, said if and when the accused man is released by Toronto Police, he would face charges resulting from a rash of incidents not far from Markham Place Mall, Thornhill, including 3 counts of abduction, 1 count of rape, 2 counts of attempted rape, and 2 counts of indecent assault. Detective Sergeant Wilson said the charges of abduction arose when a man, on 3 occasions, grabbed women by the arm at knife point and led them to secluded areas of the neighborhood. Twice victims were able to escape, but another was taken to a vacant townhouse and raped. Charged with rape and attempted rape by Metro Toronto Police was Raymond Wallace, 31, of Brookbanks Road in Don Mills. The next suspect is Philip Young. On February 1st, 1980, a man who tried to force a woman into his car at knife point was sentenced to 6 months and placed on 2 years probation. Philip Young, 25, of Summerhill Road, pleaded guilty to a charge of assault with intent to commit an indictable offense. According to police synopsis, a 25-year-old woman was walking home from a bus stop in the Don Mills Road and Lawrence Avenue area about 2:30 a.m. on February 10, 1979. She refused Young's invitation to give her a ride in his car. Moments later, he got out, grabbed her, and produced a butter knife. He held the knife first against her stomach and then near her throat as he ordered her to get into his car. The woman dropped her briefcase and purse, ran into the middle of the road, and flagged down a passing car. At this point, Young handed her the purse and briefcase and told her he never had a knife. He got into his car and drove off. The woman, crying and shaking, got into the passerby's car, and they followed Young and then went to a police station. When police arrested him, Young said he'd been drinking. Next suspect is Michael Clock. An 18-year-old Toronto girl motorist was stopped and dragged into a field in Markham, near Buttonville at Woodbine Avenue and 16th Avenue on July 16, 1974, 11:15 p.m., by a would-be rapist, but she escaped serious harm when another motorist came by and the youthful attacker fled in his own vehicle. The girl fortunately suffered nothing more than minor abrasions, said police, who declined to reveal her name. Later, following an investigation, York Regional Police Detective Sergeant John Moorhead and Detective Dick Whitman arrested a 16-year-old youth in an office at 2205 Midland Avenue, Toronto. Held in custody for a bail hearing at Richmond Hill Court was Michael Clock, 162 Bayview Fairways Drive, Thornhill. Police said Clock was already out in bail and facing a May charge of rape in a Metro court. Police charged Clock with attempted rape and with impersonating a police officer. The next suspect, the boyfriend, Jamie Fenwick. Tracy would also discuss with her sisters and friends Yugler's side of her relationship with her then boyfriend, Jamie Fenwick. Fenwick, 2 years younger, attended North York's George S. Henry Secondary School alongside Tracy. She definitely verbalized that he was jealous and didn't want her speaking to other guys, so one of Tracy's friends. I think they broke up a couple times. They had a volatile type relationship. According to a friend of Tracy's, just before the school term ended, Tracy broke off the relationship. Immediately soon after, there was a message scrawled across her locker, "Die, bitch." Her friends were sufficiently concerned they went to the school office and reported their concerns. When she was killed in August, they wondered why the police never bothered to interview them. Another friend of Tracy said Jamie had followed her home one night when she got off a bus and creeped her out. She emphatically believes it was Jamie in the bus in both instances. Tracy's ex-boyfriend, Jamie Fenwick, died in 2001, but questions continue to swirl surrounding his behavior in the lead up to Kundinger's gruesome killing in Thornhill on August 20th, 1975. Jamie was interviewed by York Regional Police investigators 3 times, but his alibi, that he was out working with his father, was corroborated by his parents and resulted in being cleared on September 3rd, 1975. Jamie told investigators that when he arrived home, he returned Tracy's call from earlier that day at around 9:30 p.m. Two talked for 10 minutes before Jamie said he'd call her back, which he said he did twice to no response. Despite this compelling alibi, suspicion persists that Jamie was involved. But Jamie's younger brother, the only surviving member of Jamie's immediate family, doesn't think his brother had anything to do with Tracy's death. "I never thought he was capable of that," he said from his home in British Columbia. "I don't think he had it in him." He says he's willing to provide his DNA to investigators to clear his brother's name and relieve the ongoing pain felt by the Kundinger family. Members of the Kundinger family, however, aren't as convinced. Tracy and Jamie made an unlikely couple, according to some. Tracy was well-groomed and a pretty 18-year-old, and Jamie the 17-year-old, somewhat shadowy, chain-smoking, silent type with shoulder-length hair. They were an idiom. He was cute, he had a mustache, wore tight jeans and a tight t-shirt, said Sharon, Tracy's younger sister. "I never witnessed him as controlling, but based on what Tracy would say, he was obviously very controlling and jealous," she added. She used to tell me about stories. One time I noticed something in her face, and I said, "What is that?" And she said, "Oh, Jamie hit me." It was a few times that it happened, and that sense was that it was just his character. I knew nobody knew that stuff, but it wasn't something you tell your parents. She was struck as a young person how introverted Jamie was. Jamie was not a social person. I don't even think he wanted her to be around other people. He just wanted her to himself. He was extremely insecure, she added. He was nice enough, not smiling nice, but he was cordial. I didn't dislike him. I don't think it was his personality that she was attracted to. They couldn't be more opposite. She said the relationship was very volatile, where they were breaking up continuously before they finally ended it for a much longer span. He was manipulative, Sharon added. He would always get her back some way. Another one of Tracy's sisters, Leanne, said she remembers Jamie as standoffish and remembers when he swung Tracy around in a stairwell, resulting in an injury to a broken leg she was nursing in a full cast. I remember my mom telling Jamie that if he got into an argument with Tracy, not to leave her alone downtown, and not because of her crutches, she said. Just that she had to say that says a lot. 61-year-old teacher from Northern Ontario came across Tracy's story while searching for answers regarding her own experience on a local late-night bus in 1975. After exiting the bus after midnight at Bayview and Finch Avenues, about 7 kilometers from Tracy's home, she said a man ran up beside her and walked with his shoulder pressed against hers for more than a minute. As she approached her street, silently panicking in her own mind, she turned to the man and said, "What do you want?" The guy turns and just looks at me. I see his hair and face and he smirks and laughs, she said. As I'm looking back over my left shoulder, he runs like a jogger. He was super easy on his feet, light-footed. After going to the police with the information in 2014, she said investigators advised her one of the descriptions names of 3 suspects, one of which was Jamie. She said the one that sounded the most likely from my standpoint was Jamie, she said. Because police didn't have a photo, she decided to attend local high schools to locate a picture of Jamie in old yearbooks before finally finding one. When I saw his picture, I said, "Oh my God," it was like a lightning bolt, she said. To my recollection, there were several markers that it was him. He reminded me of Mick Jagger. He had a smirky, cocky look and a defined jawline, and the chin had a little dimple in it and shoulder-length brown hair. Jamie's brother, now 57, said he was going to grade 10 when Tracy was murdered, but said he barely knew the 18-year-old. He said he remembers the police deciding that Jamie would not have had time to get from point A to point B, given his alibi, and the fact that his bicycle didn't appear to have been used in years, sitting dusty in the garage. Jamie was a very loving person and sentimental, he said. I never knew him to love a violent or vindictive bone in his body. He had a great sense of humor, and he was always known for his wit and charm. He added that prior to his death, Jamie grew into a heavy drinker and eventually passed from liver cancer. He was never married, never had any children. He said he does not recall Jamie working with his father that day and doesn't recall taking a call from Tracy that day. Another police detective says that although the standard of the day saw Jamie's alibi accepted and the teenager cleared, today police would have required more definitive proof, like video evidence proving an alibi or sometimes a polygraph. Despite this, he said he would not be testing Jamie's brother for his DNA, considering there's no evidence to refute the information garnered during the original investigation or Jamie's alibi. He said he's not prepared to speak to the quality of the DNA that, according to Tracy's family, was discovered under Tracy's fingernails. He did note that Jamie did consent to a polygraph at the time. However, it's unknown whether he ended up taking one. Next suspect is Larry Gillespie. Jonathan Hartman, a friend of Tracy, said he remembered Tracy breaking up with Jamie and dating another student named Larry Gillespie. I vaguely knew Jamie, but I thought it was strange he was going with her. He was a nice guy, but not wildly well-spoken, he said. Larry was a good-looking kid, well-spoken, from a classy neighborhood. I thought that makes more sense. It was a more logical pairing. Gillespie was also interviewed by police, first on August 22, 1975, and then on 2 other occasions. He's declined to speak about the case. Up next is my theory. This episode is brought to you by Nickel Investigations. My theory is Clock lived just over 1 kilometer from Tracy, and quite possibly went to school or at least knew Tracy. He certainly is a viable suspect, providing he was not in jail at the time. Likely being under 18, he was out at the time. There were almost 40 sexual assault cases in the Thornhill area in the years before and following Tracy's murder. There were 38 sexual assaults in a macro view of the area and 9 in the general vicinity between 1972 and 1979. I think the intention with Tracy was sexual assault. Someone grabbed her with that intention. However, the intended sexual assault didn't go to plan. From what everyone has told me, she would have fought back. Tracy was fairly strong and athletic. I think she fought, got the upper hand, and that's when she was hit, as he tried to control her. She kept fighting, and that's when he grabbed the twine. I believe the twine was picked up from the immediate area where trees had been recently planted and wrapped in twine. I think he was trying to control her, and he accidentally strangled her. I don't think his intention was to kill. If he was intending to kill, he would have brought a knife. And this would also allowed him to control his victim far easier. I get the impression it was the first time this person ever attacked someone, or at the very least, the first time someone fought back. In my opinion, the most viable suspect was and is Raymond Wallace. I think the murder of Tracy Kundinger was one of, if not the first, attempts he made to attack a lady. He followed her possibly off the bus or was lurking in the area. Apparently he came unprepared and used what was readily available to try to subdue Tracy when she fought back. That being a rock and then twine lying around from the trees being planted. In subsequent years, he learned a knife was far more effective to control a person. Tracy is always remembered. For years after Tracy Kundinger was murdered, her sisters Leanne, Sharon, and Janine felt a persistent and lasting terror that the killer would come for them next. The person invaded their dreams and haunted their minds, causing the hairs on the back of their necks to stand at attention every time the doorbell rang while at home, alone. No one was ever caught, said Janine. People always say, I never thought it would happen to me. Well, it happened to us, and if it happened once, why wouldn't it happen again? Tracy would be buried in the pearl necklace the girls purchased for her while down south. In a bid to maintain their family's sanity, their own relationship, and safety of their 3 young girls, Tracy's parents, Mary and Ray, did their best to carry on and put the tragedy behind them. They had 3 girls to raise, and that was a priority, said Sharon. I'm so glad my mom and dad didn't have that rage. If anything, it's brought us together. We are a close family. Leanne believes their parents did their best to let go of the resentment by refusing to dwell on the intricacies of the case. I admire them so much that they had 3 more girls, and the fact that they didn't wrap us up in a bubble wrap is amazing, she said. For my mom, she slept a lot. That's how she dealt with depression, but I know they were always protective of each other's feelings. It wouldn't be easy to remain so resolute. The girls remember crank calls to the house asking if Tracy was home, and the mother of another murdered teenager calling their mother to speak with her. Dad said no revenge, no anger will bring her back, Leanne added. The murderer has taken enough, don't let him take more. He saw how that anger and not letting go can destroy lives. Brenda Glover still thinks of her wonderful, kind friend and dedicated a bench in her memory in the field, which is now named Swanston Park, where she lost her life. I never forgot. I hold Tracy very close to my heart, she said. The family was shocked that it would come out of the woodwork years later. The park bench reads, though death leaves a heartache no one can heal, love leaves a memory no one can steal. This has been Ontario Cold Cases, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening. Please consider subscribing on Patreon, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you.